This is great. Welcome, everyone. This is 100 Proof. I'm here with Erick, of course.
What's going on, everyone? Live.
We got Mr. Snowfro here, Erick, which is awesome.
Hey, everybody.
Little echo, yeah. Let's see if that goes away. I think we're good. Yeah, we're good. I had too much Satol last night, so I'm a little tired. That was fun, though. What a great party that you threw. Let's start with you. This is your event. Tell us what's going on.
I mean, it's no longer my event. We have beautiful things happening here at Glitch, which is really special. I've also lost my voice from screaming a little bit too, too much yesterday. But yeah, it was a wonderful night last night. Anybody that came out, Jamie XX is one of my favorite musicians in the world, and the fact that we were able to bring that to Marfa to me is like incredibly meaningful, and getting to share that with everybody here was even more meaningful. So yeah, it's wonderful to be here. It's wonderful to be around all these, beautiful people, and yeah, couldn't ask for more.
Dude, just to help level set, we've got a ton of people here right now in this room. We're in Marfa, Texas. We've got amazing events all weekend. We've got art blocks running some amazing panels and some amazing exhibitions, and this awesome concert last night. I just like to level set for the audience, to level set for the people that are tuning in, streaming. Why are we here in Marfa? Like, why are we all here right now?
That's a really good question. I used to come to Marfa with my wife and my family every year, and it's a place that I just am madly in love with, and I found a lot of inspiration for. As an artist, as an entrepreneur, just as someone that loves nature, coming to Marfa was just a yearly, treat. And at one point, my wife and I were able to purchase a piece of property out here and start spending a bit more time out here, and it got even more special. I launched Art Blocks in 2020. One thing led to another. Ended up with a house here in Marfa that we could exhibit art. We aren't trying to sell art here in Marfa. What we're trying to do is literally just to show people this technology, show people this this just kind of innovation, this evolution in digital art, which is what we're kind of focused on. And it has just grown beyond my dreams. So yeah, I don't know how it's happening or why it's happening. I know people are here from Japan, Thailand, Switzerland. I mean, just all over the world, 24 hours of travel by a lot of people to get here. And that's a bigger compliment, I think, than a lot of the other stuff that's going on. And then to see what's happening right now with like an expansion of this beautiful community into, like, for example, what's happening here with Glitch, the events that are being able to be rotated in and out of this space. I mean, it feels like a different space every single time you come in here. It just feels like there's an evolution here. And I'm very proud to get to share that with everybody here in this hometown. And the Marfa community is amazing. There's beautiful people that live here. And it's a nice coalescence of things.
I'm curious, Erick, when you think about this kind of going forward, where you started a year ago, we were all out here. I was lucky enough to be out here last year. It was a little warmer last year. There was some panels with artists and some like backyard barbecue, a lot of fun things. It reminded me of like early South by Southwest vibes. Like, where do you see this going? Like, what would you like to see this turn into? Like, will it be something that you could imagine there'll be thousands of people at eventually? Because, I mean, clearly there's more people here this year than there was last year. And then is it going to be a conference? Like, how do you think of this in terms of the programming side of things and what people can expect?
Well, first and foremost, we want to be respectful of the town. It's a very small town, and so there are actual limitations, not just in Airbnbs and hotels, but just it's a small town. So we want to maintain a presence in this town that feels like we're being conscientious of the local population. And so what that means, I'm not sure yet, right? Like, we were already concerned that, we doubled the amount of people that came this year from last year. If we double again, it may feel like it's an inappropriate amount of people to bring into Desert and to bring into Marfa. So we're not sure. We're going to have to kind of navigate it. There's a lot of opportunities to identify who the greatest supporters of this community are, if necessary, to kind of, if we have to reduce the total count, we have to reduce the total count. Ideally, we don't ever have to do that. Ideally, we keep this open, and this is a small community of people that just love this kind of art. But it's just, it's hard to balance. Like, we don't know what the future holds. So
before we switch gears, you've got this really, so you're being interviewed by Wired Magazine. They're out here in Marfa. You're getting that interview in 30 minutes. So we don't have a ton of time with you right now. Before we switch gears, because I definitely want to talk about your new work coming out next week in Mexico City. You're definitely going to have to riff on that. For folks that are here in the audience and for folks that are just starting to get a taste of what Marfa is, what are some of the special things that you hope people do in Marfa over the next 48 hours while they're still here? Is there anything that you recommend them check out or look into or visit while they're actually physically present in Marfa?
Yeah, so first of all, visit all the shops. There's some fun stuff here. Marfa is a town that is full of art and full of artists, and there's a lot of beautiful places to consume art here. So visit all the shops along the two main streets and see what's out there. The Chinati Foundation is pivotal in my development and how I ended up launching art blocks. There's artwork at the Chinati Foundation that is inspirational to me as to how you can have a rule set that then dictates what an artist can do and what they can build within a rule set. So Donald Judd's work is inspirational and also just very important, I think, in the history of art. What Donald Judd did in Marfa to kind of, get people to come out into the desert to appreciate art in a specific place, not just inside of a gallery, is important. And you can go experience that. You can go walk around in fields and do not step on the concrete boxes, but like you can go and experience the concrete boxes. And if you are lucky enough to get a tour of Chinati, because I assume they're probably booked up, go check out the 100 untitled boxes in milled aluminum and all the flavin pieces. If you know my art and if you know kind of like who I am, you will see how much I love that work and how deeply inspirational it was for me. And I hope that that can inspire. There's a lot of artists in town. There's an insane amount of artists. Like you are now surrounded with some of the best generative artists in the entire world are within like a mile of this place. So, go try to visit those things with them, see their eyes kind of light up and as they kind of like understand, what Donald Judd did. And yeah.
Really curious, how many people are going to Mexico City? Is there a show of hands? Like, there's quite a few people. That's awesome. Can you, that's coming up. It's next week. You're leaving, what, Sunday or Monday to head out there? Give us a little flavor of what we can expect. Do you have any sense of what the environment's going to look like? Can you talk about, without dropping too much alpha, like what your algorithm, this is a big deal. This is like your next main algo project, generative piece. What can you tell us?
The anxiety of this work is being relieved slowly as I start releasing some of these images. And this has been something that I committed to because I was born in Mexico City and I wanted to commit to participating in something in Mexico City. It was important for me to do that. I committed in April and I was like, I got like 8 months and it wasn't enough time. I've been, working late trying to get these things out. What you can expect is also kind of inspired by what you're surrounded by here in Marfa. There is an algorithm that I wrote that's a very simple, clean, colorful piece of art in typical Chromie Squiggles fashion. But it is all about the way that piece of art is meant to be experienced. And so then I wrote an algorithm that creates a room. And the room has windows, and the windows create shadows on top of the art. And the idea is that the piece of art in and of itself is meant to be a piece of generative or algorithmic art, but I want it to be experienced in a particular way. And so I created a room that makes the experience of viewing that art more meaningful, at least more impactful, the way that I want to see it. So yeah, we will be releasing 100 of them, 25 per night. There's a really crazy room that is, it literally looks like a room out of Trainspotting, if you guys have seen that movie. It's amazing how like rough that venue is, but how much like history and how much culture is built into it. If you're not familiar with Bright Moments, they are revolutionized. They are literally evolving art again. Like if we think that art blocks might be evolving digital art in one direction, Bright Moments has then been able to take that and made it a personal experience and has now evolved it even further into this like moment of minting, this moment of creation, often sitting next to the artist, which I'm very anxious about. But it's going to be really special, and I can't wait to share that with anybody that's coming down there.
We're going to have to dig in a little bit further. This is a great explanation, but we're not going to let you off the hook, dude. So the thing I love about your work is how much it reflects your process and your creative journey. And so if we think about Chromie Squiggle as this instructional template for other generative artists to understand the infinite possibilities of what can happen when you bring creative coding into Web3, and you're able to use that as a tool to like share and teach people about what Art Blocks is. I think it certainly served its job as like the Genesis project for Art Blocks and the Genesis work for you as a creative coder in Web3. Then we look at your next drop that you did with Proof. It was up here a second ago, but you started you obviously there's a through line in terms of like the color palette and like what you're known for and your creative style. But you were starting to also play with this like identity of bringing the digital with the physical, and it was very much an exercise for you in showing how these two worlds were starting to collide. And I've been fortunate enough to see this third piece and some of the algo and working through some of these test outputs. And it's so clear to me how this is certainly an evolution of those first two projects on Web3. There's certainly the color palettes that you're most known for, but you're also starting to dig in and demonstrate to people like where creative coding and where generative art is actually headed. And it's headed more and more into this physical space. It's more and more headed into places like this. And so it would be awesome for you to just chat a little bit about, reflect a little bit on that and making this work, and maybe as a third piece in terms of your creative journey in Web3 and what this piece means to you.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. That was very kind. So this piece means a lot just in the fact that it was very important that I was able to preserve the thread of color, while also wanting to do something a little bit more serious, a little bit less like kind of whimsical than the Chromie Squiggle. There is a very direct correlation between specific Chromie Squiggle mints and the mints that are happening in Mexico City that I'm really excited to reveal after the project is over. But yeah, the idea that you're experiencing it in a physical space, it's like we struggle with living with digital art. It is so hard to live with digital art. And, you know, we spend a lot of time with screen companies and hardware companies and trying to figure landscape, portrait, like what's the best way? And there isn't really a great solution. Everybody kind of has their own, you know, duct taped way of having art in their home. There's a wonderful screen by Samsung that has a matte finish on it. It seems like a small evolution, but pretty massive, that now you can have a screen that doesn't look like a television in your living room that can also display digital art. And so as we struggle with that, again, like it felt necessary for me to create the environment that the piece was going to be appreciated in. And so that's where this evolution came. And in terms of physicality, I have a lot of very strong opinions about how physical and digital art should exist. I love signed prints from artists. They're like my most prized possessions, but there's this fear of the separation between the NFT, the token itself, and like the piece of physical art. And what happens to the value of those when they're split? You know, what happens when you accept an offer on OpenSea for something that you have the physical thing for, and so you no longer have that. And so exploring, to me, the idea of these like ephemeral physical objects, things that are correlated but do not reduce inherent sentimental or like financial value of either when separated, is something really important to me, and something that we're exploring with the Proof drop.
We haven't announced that yet.
Yeah, so we're, you know, some exciting.
Is now the time?
No, maybe, I don't know.
You could. It's your art. You're welcome to announce it if you like.
This is the red audience.
Yeah, do it. Why not?
Okay, well, there will be, in the anxiety of my life these days, which is pretty overwhelming, I take some time to spend time with my kids, and one of the things that I do is I make pots. And so like the piece that's up there, what you actually have is you have two ceramic bowls that are sitting on top of a digital algorithm that I wrote. And what I did is because it was only 50 people that claimed them, because otherwise it would have been impossible, I spent the next few weeks making what I'm calling little scrappy pots, which is like small little ceramic pots with all different color palettes, and they're being shipped to Kevin. And so anyone that bought one of those, or anyone that has one of those tokens, will get to redeem for one of those little scrappy pots. So it's just a small token, but the idea is that like that pot is not the pot that's in the picture, right? Like if you have that pot and you cherish that pot, or you use it to like put your what's it called? Like for sushi, your little like, what's the soy sauce dish? Yeah. My God, yeah. It's been a long week. Then great. Like if you sell the NFT, that's fine. You know, it's okay. It's not meant to be the actual thing that is correlated to the actual thing. This friendship bracelet project that Art Blocks released this week is a demonstration, in my opinion, of the most pure form of physical good, physical object that's correlated to an NFT that doesn't have inherent value, but can be a signal, can be a daily reminder outside of your phone, outside of your screens, of your participation in the space and like the impact that artists can make in your daily life. And so we're really excited to explore those things. This community has been very receptive to exploring those things. I really am enjoying getting to see come to life some crazy ideas that have been floating around in here for a long time. And the Art Blocks team is a phenomenal team that has helped me like kind of execute on these ideas. And I feel very lucky to get to work with those people. I feel very lucky to have like supportive family at home that pushes these ideas through. And then the collector base is just like phenomenal. So yeah, very grateful.
While we've got you, I don't know how much, only a little bit of time left, but because we're in Marfa, it's not lost on me that you named this new piece that you're, just to level set, born in Mexico City, you're going back to Mexico City, you're coming full circle as an artist. You're launching this piece called 100 Untitled Spaces. You referenced Donald Judd's 100 Boxes, which is here in Marfa earlier in the panel. Maybe riff a little bit on why you're bringing in elements of Marfa and Donald Judd and what bringing those artists into this piece, that work and that artist into this piece means to you.
It means a lot. I mean, this is an opportunity for me to kind of like pay a little bit of homage towards Donald Judd. There's a lot of sentiment often that Donald Judd would be turning in his grave at the thought of NFTs, and so obviously you want to pay respect to like the artist, but I also think that with that sentiment, I think it's okay to be inspired by a piece of art, and so I've been deeply inspired by Donald Judd's work. The other side of this, though, this project started as a project called 100 Untitled Stairs. And the actual inspiration for this piece originally was Luis Barragan, who's an architect in Mexico. My wife's an architect. I come from the design industry, so I've spent the last 20 years with architects and interior designers, and I feel like I have the ability to kind of appreciate spaces and understand how color works. And Luis Barragan used color and very like dangerous staircases as main features in his work. And so this piece is basically 100 rooms. And Luis Barragan often in the center of a room had a very simple, minimal painting. And that painting would correlate with some other color in the room. And again, sometimes the sunlight would come and like streak across it. And so it was really easy for me to like put together my roots from Mexico City with architecture with Luis Barragan. I'm a huge fan of Robert Irwin. In fact, there's one of the most beautiful installations in the entire world here. And I don't know if you can have access to it. I don't know how Chinati works with access to the space, but it's all about shadows, it's all about space, it's all about rooms, it's all about open, and then adding a little bit of color, which I feel like I have to add a little bit of color to everything that I do. So.
Really curious. You wear so many hats, like entrepreneur, father, husband, now throwing events like this, and you did Chromie Squiggles a bit of time because things caught on fire in a good way. Gracious that you did the Grails drop, and now you have another one coming. When you think about your career as an artist, like forgetting everything else for a second, what do you think your cadence will be for new projects going forward? Like, is this something where it's kind of more, if something strikes you every couple of years, you'll do something, or is it something you want to ramp up over time?
I think that's really hard. I work with Adam Lindermann, a gallery out in New York named Venus Over Manhattan, and every now and then Adam's like, okay, what's your total count? And from the gallery perspective, there's like, how many total works of art are there by a specific artist? And at the same time, there's a lot of people in this space that I want to collaborate with and I want to do fun stuff with, right? Like if I could establish a relationship with Grant Yoon, for example, and do a drop with him, like, God, that would add 100 or 500 pieces. And all of a sudden it starts to feel exponential. And then I also think that there's like not any limitation to how much art can exist in the world. And trying to balance that a little bit is really difficult. That's why I get to work with a really nice fine art gallery to kind of help put that into perspective. But also we can't be weighed by the history of the fine art world in terms of edition sizes, because this is also meant to be a more democratized form of art. It's meant to be more accessible. Chromie Squiggles were $10 when they went for sale, right? Like I wouldn't put a transaction in to buy a Chromie Squiggle when gas was more than $2 because I felt like it would be a complete waste of money to spend more than $2 on gas. So I'd put these transactions in overnight, like 10, 15 at really low gas prices, and I'd wake up and some days there'd be 10, 15 Chromie Squiggles, and some days...
You're just hurting everyone right here, by the way.
The ultimate flex.
You did the same exact.
I did the same thing.
So yeah, I don't know. It's hard to understand what the right number is. I think to me right now, it's more important to collaborate with people, to support other artists in the space that have been deeply supportive of my work and also inspirational. And so we'll see over the next couple of years. Right now, I have about 25 projects that I would love to do. And so then it's just a matter of balancing, the wisdom of the traditional art world with this new evolution of art.
I think that's all the time we have with you, dude. We don't want you to be late for Wired. Go on. But can we get a round of applause for Erick?
Yes, thank you.
Erick mentioned this amazing gallerist. His name is Adam Lindermann. We'd love for Adam, if he's in the audience, to come down next to chat a little bit about working. Oh, there he is. Come on down, Adam. Let's go a round of applause for Adam.
We've chatted over video, but it's good to finally meet in person.
I know.
That's awesome.
Adam, what do you think of Marfa, man?
It's so interesting to be here. By the way, Kevin, you look good in reality, but
Oh, thank you.
it's so different from Zoom, right?
It is.
Totally
Talking
different.
on Zoom and Zoom and Zoom. But, this is so interesting to be here at this time because, this was a very interesting choice that Erick made by bringing this whole Art Blocks thing to Marfa. And it's was a bit of a shock to the art world. And I haven't really sort of canvassed the art world to see how everyone feels about it. But I don't know if you read that famous New Yorker piece that we were all kind of mixed on. But I think that, what did Barnum, P.T. Barnum said, I don't care what they write about me as long as they spell my name right. So the fact that it was even in the New Yorker to me is a big deal. And the fact that you're here, Derek and Stephen, and that you've made this here and you've strengthened this whole concept of digital art here in Marfa, I think it's kind of a brilliant combination and over time will lend you great credibility in what we're all doing here. And I love being in Marfa. It's a little hard to get to.
I think that's by design, though, in some sense. You weed out some of the less hardcore folks that wouldn't make the trek otherwise.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how's it been? So tell us your whole story about finding Erick. And then you're so known for your work in the traditional art world, obviously insanely well known on that front. And then something caught your eye and you're like, okay, this Web3 is something, NFTs are something, and Erick is something special. What are those little pieces that you identified that pulled you and drew you into what he was building?
So I'll just give you the truth, the straight story, but I don't know if you're going to like it. You have to give me your feedback on what you think about it, because I look up to you two as great experts and resources in this field, and I might know about art history, but I'm not a predictor of the future of art history, and that's why I'm here, is that I want to be in touch with the zeitgeist of what's happening and how the world is changing. But I was at a cocktail party kind of dinner at Novogratz's apartment downtown, where I was invited as a possible investor in Galaxy, etc. And I was aware of Art Blocks, but I didn't really get it. And the two speakers were Erick Calderon and Dmitry Cherniak, who's here as well. So I was familiar with squiggles, I was familiar with ringers, and I felt that, and this was quite naive of me, without like researching it and understanding everything, I felt that in a way a squiggle was the simplest form of digital art because it reminded me of a Lichtenstein brushstroke. And I don't know if you're all familiar with the work of the great Roy Lichtenstein. He did these famous paintings of just a brushstroke. What a weird idea to actually paint a brushstroke. And it was about what art is about and about the medium of the painter and the gesture and all these things that everyone talks about. But I was like, isn't that what a squiggle is? It's a kind of a computer brush stroke. And I felt, Kevin, that the people who are collecting here are people who are already on their computer. The computer is part of their life, and the phone, the computer. And so this is art created by a computer for people on a computer, collected with a computer it seemed to have a sense to it. Like it all made sense. It ticked all the boxes. So the generative concept worked with the computer, the fact that you stored it on the computer through the blockchain. So, and it also seemed like a very simple thing. So I thought it was a good way to start. So I walked up to Erick and I said, listen, I'm Adam. I have a gallery. People follow it, and I'd like to give you a show. And I really had no financial machination in it. There was no sale. I wasn't minting anything. I just wanted to do a show, and I didn't realize that Derek had actually created that graph of the different squiggles that I think Mike Jacobellis had texted me to get me into it. And I didn't realize you, in a way, are the author of my show, because when I saw the grid of the different types, it suddenly made sense that there were different variations and different rarities, and what are the great ones and the standard ones. And for instance, my favorite was the standard. So that also made sense to me, that the most prolific one created by the algorithm, 60% of them standards, I like the standard the best. And so it also sort of intuitively made sense as a project, and that's how I started the show. And actually, Erick said, are you sure you want to do this? I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And that's how the dialogue began.
I'm really, really curious. When you do this show, I take it you're inviting in a lot of traditional art collectors into the mix. Is that correct in that show?
Well, that's a big question there. So I invite in a lot of people, and they're coming. They're slowly coming, and it's a convergence of worlds. It doesn't need to be like crashed together, but some people are coming into digital art more and more, and other people are staying away. Just this morning, I was dealing with some of my team who were questioning that chip that you turned me on to put on the back of it.
IYK. There's a PO app for everyone if you want to scan that chip in the back. It's powered by a group called IYK. You scan it with your phone, and a PO app claim will pop up for you. So this is what we've been chatting about over the last week.
But something happened 2 weeks ago when I was in Paris. I was the moderator of the launch of the Calder Foundation's NFT. And you know, Alexander Calder is one of the greatest artists of the 20th century. And the Calder Foundation, run by Sandy Rower, a friend of mine, issued an educational NFT, which earns you points if you pass the test to get one of the Calder NFTs. And everyone's like, what do you think? What do you think? Is it good? Is it bad? What do you think of the NFT? And I'm like, I think the NFT is pretty good. But what's interesting is the Calder Foundation is issuing an NFT. And I believe that more artist foundations, museums, estates, this will also have a whole educational purpose within the art world. So I think that these two worlds are coming together, but it'll take a little while.
It's an awesome answer. Erick alluded to this just a few minutes ago when he works with you and thinking a little bit about what it means to be a creative coder, working with someone who understands so intimately the lifespan and the collection size and the works of an artist as they evolve through their career. How, for you, has working with Erick been different or the same or challenging or unique, given that he's coming at this from a new design space compared to some of the other artists and collections you've worked with in the past?
Wow, that's a tough.
He asks all the tough questions, for sure.
It's a good cop, bad cop over here.
Yeah.
Do I get a Moonbird gin if I answer that question right?
That one's already empty. I think Drew can take care of that, though.
I think that one thing that is nice about Erick is his modesty. I think we all are sensitive to that contrary to some person who could justifiably be like very bombastic, he's like very low key about it and says, I did this, it worked, everybody likes it, I'm happy, I'm still learning. So my general feeling about Erick is that he's just learning all the time. And what you said, Kevin, is the fact that his dual role of CEO of Art Blocks and being an artist in his personal practice, I mean, this is two different balls that he's juggling. But I think he's developing a lot. He's putting pressure on himself to sort of move forward. But he's one of the great innovators of this field. And so that becomes part of history. And so I think that position will always be solid and important. And speaking to both of you, my intuitive feeling about Squiggles was just sort of strengthened always. You guys are two of the great, great believers. And this is one of the building block projects. But the Moonbird thing is also like unbelievable what happened with Moonbirds. And so there are more projects and there will be more. But I think he and his artistic practice is growing. It's interesting what he said about what I said about art versus he says about the democratic nature of the digital world. What do you think about that? Like the one-of-ones versus the 10,000. Are we leaving the 10,000 projects now? Are we going into the 1,000, the 100? Where's this all going to go? Or it depends for what?
I have thoughts, but Kev, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, I think the PFP space is going to be challenging, especially if secondary royalties go away. Just in the sense that most of these PFPs are powered by some type of utility. And if there isn't the ongoing capital to fund a group of people behind the scenes working to build on behalf of that audience, it's going to be challenging. Unless you've raised venture capital or have some other means of powering that. So yeah, that obviously with generative art, additions are a lot more easier. Like big additions are a lot more easier. You just let the algorithm run and you decide how many you want it to be. One-of-ones, I don't think it's not like a winner take all here. Like there's going to be, it really depends on what you are drawn to. I still collect generative pieces and I still collect one-of-ones. So yeah, it's, and I see even generative artists doing one-of-ones. So it's a mixture.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. The other thing I would add is just for artists like Erick, I think there's an interesting design space right now for them to make work and make art and proliferate that work without actually minting, right? They've clearly become this networked artist. They've got, he's got his Chromie Squiggles at 10,000. He's got his proof drop that he did at 50. He's got 100 untitled spaces at 100. And I know you've been chatting with him about what is the right cadence. I think there's also this very interesting design space for Erick to make work in physical spaces or in digital spaces that don't have to end up in a blockchain, that can be used to network the rest of the collection and bring attention to himself as an evolving creator and an artist without having to affect the digital scarcity that exists with the mints that have already been minted. And I think that design space is yet to be played with by a number of artists. What does it mean to straddle both worlds? Now that you have this networked effect of your mints and a cadence in place, do you have to mint on chain every time you create new work? I think the answer is no. And I'm excited to see, the pinch pots, for example, is a great idea by Erick to start playing with these physical spaces more, even if they don't end up on a blockchain as mints.
I mean, you know who the king of this is Beeple.
Beeple is the king of
He posts things every single day,
Yep.
and you look at it and you're blown away by the artwork, but he's not making those NFTs. Some of them, I would argue, probably should never make his NFTs. They're pretty hardcore. And he'd be okay with me saying that. I was giving him shit the other day about the crypto dick butt one, where I was like, good God, man, what are you doing? That was a wild one.
Yeah, no, Beeple is a great example of someone who made work for 13 years, 14 years, never monetized, but built a humongous network around his brand, himself as an artist, and is very selective about what he puts on chain. And I think we'll see it come from the other direction too, which is artists who have created amazing work on chain, who have reached a threshold of credibility, starting to play and toy with the design space off chain as a method to create value for the world, to showcase their evolution as an artist without it actually having to be monetized on chain. So I think there's an interesting design space there.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think actually someone that's done it quite well is Xcopy, where you have a collection like Grifters, which is a little bit more accessible. Granted, it is still really expensive. Then he did an open edition, which is just like, and it happened to be a really good piece. So it was just like, go for it. However many get minted. It was open for X number of hours or whatever it was. And then you have his one-of-ones that he drops, every 3 to 4 months, which are an instant $400,000 or $500,000 sale. So he's like, you get the aspirational collector at the low end that says, hey, I have this piece, it's amazing, and someday I'll be able to go and work my way up the chain and collect something bigger from Xcopy. So he's done a good job at kind of like straddling both worlds. But I'm curious, like, does that do you think that works long term? Because I know some people would argue if you go too low end, it hurts some of your more kind of higher end one-on-one prices.
Well, typically in the art world, you can't do that. If Jeff Koons is at $6 million, a sculpture, he could put something out in an edition, but they've never really been successful. But this is a completely different world where everyone's got a computer, so everyone can participate. And the art world is much smaller, much more limited. Does it work? Geez, I don't know. I mean, I've bought Beeples that are 1 of 100. I bought a Beeple that was a 1 of 1. I thought, wow, this is an amazing opportunity. My question for the two of you would be, in your views, where will this collecting world be in 10 years? I mean, we have this FTX thing going. I mean, this thing is going on, and it's bigger than ever. And I think it's put a kind of a really a cloud over this whole world, which is unfortunate because it has nothing to do with what we're here for example. But let's say, forgetting that all that black smoke, where will this world be in 10 years? Where will your collection be in 10 years, and where will other people be?
All right, I'll start. I think there's a few things that come to mind. One, there has been in the past already these massive explosions. The ICO market that was a few years ago, where a lot of people lost money. And it's unfortunate that this happened to FTX because they were so well regarded. In the ICO world, at least you knew it was rolling the dice every time you got in on one of those investments. People are going to be more skeptical now going into certain things, especially when they go into new exchanges. And there will be leaders that I think this really pushes a lot more transparency at the actual exchange level in showing their reserves in real time and exposing that data that they never exposed before. And that will give more confidence. And I think that's actually a really good thing, as much as it really sucks in the short term. That said, there's nothing broken about the underlying technology. Nothing is flawed about NFTs or blockchain. It is all working as promised, except for Solana, which sometimes falls over. But that said, hopefully they'll fix that. I love those guys. That said, with NFTs, I think there's some really exciting things that are just on the horizon. We've been talking about Instagram enabling NFTs here and turning every single Instagram account into an actual wallet. I believe that if this is to be successful at the low end, you probably won't even know it's an NFT. There'll be a way for someone to publish a photo of something, call it a celebrity, sell 10,000 of them for a very low price point, and you'll have them in your wallet. They'll be on chain, but no one will know they're on Polygon. The average consumer will have no clue that's actually happening behind the scenes. They'll be able to sell them and transfer them, and all of that will just function as planned. At the very high end, we need these things to look better. Like this, the first time I saw a Danvers frame, have you seen Danvers yet? Have you seen their frames? It's the first time I've been blown away and thought to myself, this actually elevates art for the very first time in a way that makes it feel more valuable. It doesn't feel like a TV turned sideways. These are beautiful, but they still feel a little TV-like. You know what I mean?
100%.
And I think at the high end, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, but once a traditional art collector can walk into a room and feel like it's a piece of art, like it for me, the micro LED technology and the matte display and the way that it looked, it was no longer a television. It felt like it's something I could display in my home. It added a little bit of lift and value to me. That coupled with enhanced security, ease of use around less people getting frauded out of their NFTs. I know Ledger's working on a ton of additional add-ons so that there'll be all types of warnings, and you're looking at contract dates to see if something's newly deployed, how many times has it been used. There's going to be a bunch of tooling that kicks in the next couple of years that'll make this a safer environment. More wallets will come online. So it's baby steps. It's early innings. So 10 years from now, I think we're going to be in a really good place, but it's going to be bumpy and rocky, and that's just any new market emerging and risk kind of showing its head.
Yeah, I love that. I guess I'll add a couple of things just in terms of how I think about the next few years and the next 10 years and where we're at today in light of all of the drama that we're seeing with FTX and beyond. The first thing I'll say is in this room right now, we're all here gathering and largely unaffected by the spirit of what's happening on the internet around FTX. We're very enthusiastic about art blocks and Marfa. This stream is being powered by a decentralized streaming group called the 402. We have a POAP activation back there through IYK. We've got Venus over Manhattan, who has played a major role in this whole movement, here with us, sharing thoughts about bridging the past and the present. It feels like nothing is slowing down. We're just kind of speeding up. So I'm more excited than I've ever been about this technology and where we're going, and its impact on social and gaming and infrastructure. And the thing I always come back to is this is the only time in human history, now that we're able to take any type of digital object and wrap scarcity around it, the only time in human history that we're going to go from a pure physical recording format where information is recorded physically or on siloed databases to a purely digital format where everything is recorded on a trust minimized database. It's a very, very powerful lift, and it's only going to happen one time in human history. It's happening right now. It's going to happen over the next 10 to 15 years. The richness and density of information that's going to end up on these ledgers is going to be vast and total and complete, and we're just at the very earliest innings of what that will look like. And so as I look out over the next few years, and I'm seeing these tailwinds, and I'm more excited about this technology than ever, and I'm seeing it bridge into physical spaces, I can't help but be very excited about what I'm seeing.
Anytime you see me buy a Chromie Squiggle, it's because I just had a conversation with him where he talks like that, and I'm like, oh my God, he's so right. Let me go buy some more NFTs.
Those were good words, I got to say.
Yeah, exactly.
If anyone recorded them, please send them to me.
I know we don't have you for a ton of time. We're going to have Phil from Bright Moments join us in a few minutes, but just while we've got you here, it would be awesome. You've seen Erick's new work. It's launching next week. We talked a little bit about it in Mexico City. I'd love for you just to take a couple of minutes to talk about his evolution of it as an artist and what you like about the new work and what you're excited about.
Put me right on the spot there, sure. I was nervous about it. I'm always nervous about it because I wonder, you've created something great, and I always think less is more. But all the artists that I've worked with always often feel that more is more. I mean, we have a lot more is more people than less is more people. I was like, Erick, this is amazing, this whole squiggle thing. Don't F it up. Just be careful with that. And also, I had said, he only had minted 9,500, so he's kept a lot back. And then I was one of the people who encouraged him to mint out the full set, because until it's completely finished, water will not find its level as long as you're kind of adding more, taking away more. So I was very much about finishing that mint and not coming up with new things. So I'm the nervous guy about it, but open-minded as well. And if any of you have been to Mexico City and know about the history of architecture, Luis Barragan is one of the great, great masters of Mexico, that beautiful, minimal architectural, colorful Mexican thing. And when he connected to that, I thought it was really smart, because he brings out his own Mexican heritage, which I think is wonderful. He brings out something that's a pride of Mexico. Barragan is dead for years, so it's a kind of a homage to him. And if you get a chance to ever go to Mexico City, you can visit his home and you can see the way he used light and color. So I think it was super smart and a good connection for him. So I was very impressed that he found that tie-in. And then the ceramic idea. So I like that because this is all about computer, right? This is also about code, digital, generative, push the button. And here is the guy just literally making something with his fingers. And is it great? Is it not great? I mean, it doesn't really matter. What's interesting is the fact that he's gone from full technology to full handmade. And that juxtaposition is what I felt was most interesting. So those pots and the way they're integrated into a generative piece is like combining two worlds. So that breakthrough I thought was really good.
One last quick question for you before we have to let you go. I'm curious, you identified Erick. Fantastic job there. If you look at who you've had showcased at your gallery over time, it's just incredible blue chip artists. Who's on your radar on the digital side? And are there other artists that you're looking to represent on the digital side?
Absolutely, yes. And I want to do more work with digital artists, and I'm open to your suggestions. So far, I've had just very good luck working with people who are really powerful, like Justin Aversano and Erick, of course. I have 2 or 3 projects coming this year. I don't feel like I need to come up with one a week or one a month. I don't want to be that guy. I want to have a couple of special projects, do them really well. It's interesting. I have one for January, which I've been working on, but because of all this smoke going on, we may postpone it to the summer. So, but there are more artists that I'd like to work with, like X-Copy. I'm a huge fan of X-Copy. I don't know how to contact.
We might have the plug right here.
But look, thank you both.
This is X-Copy right here. Just so you know.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Lindermann.
Yeah, thank you.
Next up, let's keep this party going. We've got Phil from Bright Moments here. So Phil, you want to come on down and we can chat a little bit about Mexico City and the upcoming mints?
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So excited for next week.
I'm feeling it. We're like a week out now, so we're in full sprint mode, getting ready for the event.
So I have to say, one of my engineers went to your London event, and she came back, and this was before I had been to anything. Obviously, I'd heard everything that you all were up to, and she was just blown away by the experience, like the crafted experience that all goes into what you do. Like it seems like it must take you a month to set something like this up. For people, I'm curious, how many people have minted something at Bright Moments? Have you done actual mints? Wow.
Nice.
That's
great.
amazing. So can you walk us through what your experiences are like and why you decided to create this type of model? Because it's a beautiful thing that you've done. You've elevated the minting experience to the highest possible tier. And then also, kind of walk us through what you have planned for Mexico City.
Yeah, so if you can place yourself in 2021 coming out of the pandemic, there was a moment there we'd all been inside for a very long time. We'd been in front of our screens for a while, and for many of us, sort of NFTs were emerging in the periphery or something that was engaging. And as the pandemic restrictions lifted in Venice, California, a group of us who found a local watering hole near the beach decided to put together a place for people to gather physically. It was the first time in 2 years that was possible, and that was really the start of Bright Moments. Our founder, Seth Goldstein, decided to purchase real estate in the heart of Venice right when the restrictions were lifting, and it seemed like a really bad idea. And we would just throw art shows every Thursday night. The nice thing about NFTs is they're permissionless. With a couple of screens like this and some software, you can have a party, just add music. And so we would throw these events on Thursday nights where we would find digital artists who maybe had collectors online but didn't really have a way to physically exhibit their art. And we would invite people, and it started small. There was a group of about 40 of us or so in the DAO at the very beginning. And over the course of that summer in 2021, as Art Blocks was having a moment, as NFTs and generative art were having a moment, we found this grew. And along the same time, we were fortunate enough to be connected with Erick, be connected with Jeff Davis. We actually exhibited Jeff's project Portals at Bright Moments. And from that emerged this idea of live minting, which is, I think, something that's unique to generative art, where the collector is involved in the creation of the art. They're not just consuming it after the fact. It's the artist needs the collector in order to complete the piece. And so we've tried to create a physical experience around that act of minting. And along the way, we've met some amazing people. We've had the chance to work with Derek and Steven and many others along the way. But it's really been quite an amazing journey. We'll see where it takes us. As you mentioned, we're going to Mexico next week with 10 amazing artists in our Mexico City collection. So we're really excited about that.
Can you walk us through what that experience is going to feel like for those that are going or can't make it?
Yeah, so Mexico City is the 6th city that we've launched a gallery in. We started in Venice Beach, New York, Berlin, London. We're now going to Mexico. We have what we call the Galacticans in the metaverse, and our goal is to get to 10 cities over the next few years, and we want to finish in 2024 with the 10th city. And so Mexico is, it sometimes feels like the biggest city that we've done so far. We started in a little gallery that was an old tattoo parlor in Venice Beach with sand all over the floor. So we try to like remember that. And in Mexico, we've rented out a venue called Prim. It's 2 or 3 stories. It's amazing. There's going to be 10 unique rooms for each of the artists in the Mexico City collection who are minting. So when you walk in, there's this long sort of traditional Mexican architecture hallway. We have a projection mapping with a local artist, Juan RG, where there's 1,000 mints projected on the wall. And if you're coming to Mint, it's basically like an adult Disneyland for generative art minters. There's a bunch of people who are really excited about this. And each room is the artist's vision and the work being created for the first time, combined with the physical experience that they feel is best suited to the reveal of that digital artwork. And so for some artists, it's sort of very low-key, down-tempo. Maybe it's a meditative moment where they take some time with themselves or their loved ones to experience the art. For other artists, it's supposed to be like, full sensory experience where you go in there and it's much like a museum piece. If you've been to maybe the Broad in Los Angeles and you're familiar with the Infinity Room, things like that, where it's really something that you take home and you reflect on the way that the physical experience made you feel. And so that's next week. It's 4 days from the 16th to the 19th in Mexico City. If you have a mint pass, you're welcome to come mint. We also are minting the 1,000 crypto mexas, which are our PFP project, also the membership to Bright Moments. And in each city we go to, we do a study of the locals there, a study of the culture, and try to create this on-chain generative artifact, which are called the crypto citizens. And we invite locals to come mint with us for free as a way to onboard them into generative art. So that's all happening next week.
Curious, obviously we don't want to spoil anything that's going to happen at that event, but I thought the London one, from the description I received, was just so special. And can you dive into a little bit of like when you walk in the door to do a mint in London, tell people what that was like, because it was just crazy.
Yeah, so in London, we had 2 different galleries, one at 18 Albemarle and another at 13 Soho Square. At 18 Albemarle, it was intended to feel like the top tier of a consumer experience. I mean, London is this amazing place with a rich heritage of capitalism, and we wanted, when you walked in the door, to felt like you were walking into a generative art Tiffany's, where you're greeted with a glass of champagne, and everyone on the floor is dressed to the nines in long black dresses or suits. And it really meant to, it's like an appointment experience. You would show up with an appointment, they would greet you, know you by name. It was you were going to mint a crypto Londoner, and so you would spend time walking around the gallery looking at physical prints of all the crypto Londoner traits, learning about the collection. And then when you go upstairs, you would have a moment where the door closes, you're brought your drink of choice, whether that's a glass of Prosecco or tea to your tasting. You'd sit down, we had a small black box in front of you, and before you did anything, there's no screens in the room, keep it in mind. This isn't supposed to be a digital experience, it's supposed to be bespoke. We had a member of our team who would just have a conversation with you, and really that's what the minting was about, was having a one-on-one personal connection with a person. And when you were ready, you would open the box, and we thought it was sort of funny to have the screen be the smallest production quality screen we could find. It was about 45 by 45 pixels. It's about this big. And you would open the box with, and we hand you a magnifying glass, and you go to look at your NFT, and there's a self-playing piano in the corner of the room that starts playing the generative music with the NFT. And it sounds ridiculous because it was. It
sounds awesome.
Yeah, right. And so, over the course of July, we had 1,000 people come in person to mint these NFTs. 334 of them were from London or the UK. We try to find locals in every city we go to. And those people become the foundation of the sub-DAO that we leave behind. And so now in London, we have a sub-DAO. It's the Bright Moments London chapter, where they're continuing to do shows with artists like Fingercode. So that was sort of the crypto Londoner experience. And then at 13 Soho Square, for those of you familiar with London, Soho is not that vibe at all. Soho is sort of grungy. People go there for pubs after work. Everyone's spilling in the streets, dressed in suits with their ties undone, having a pint. And so Soho was a more communal experience. We worked with 6 artists in the London collection, and over the course of the month of July, each of them had a solo exhibition that was unique to their vision. So we worked with amazing artists like Sputniko, Emily Shia, Matt Delorier, Thomas Lim Peterson, Jeff Davis, and Nicholas Sassoon. And every week we would do their show from Thursday to Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'd tear it down and we'd put up a new show. So, in Matt Delorier's case, he came in and he had a vision for what he wanted. We set up projectors on the ceiling. He wrote this amazing computer program on a computer that I don't even know where he found it. It was like an old IBM PC, and it was basically a node program where you would type in terminal commands like you're in some sort of like nuclear launch station. And based on the commands you wrote in, the mint would come up and it would fill the whole room and all the walls. And in Emily's case, her project off script, she had collectors engage in a collage experience. So you would cut out a piece that was a feature from the work, and as you finished in the final cut from the scissors, the piece would appear on the wall. So it was a really fun experience. London was, we were coming from Berlin previously, which was sort of this mega experience. It was this old abandoned power plant, and we thought it would be really interesting to go from the biggest NFT experience possible, where you had 10,000 people a night come in, to the smallest possible, where it's you and one other person in a room, and the smallest screen we could find in a glass of Prosecco. So we try to mix it up every city we go to.
I think we're all getting pretty excited here. Phil, just switching back to Mexico City, you mentioned that there's 10 artists that are going to be deploying work, and they'll be able to curate the deployment of that work, the generation of that work in their own unique style. Maybe you can talk a little about who those artists are, why they were chosen, and what it's been like to work with those 10 unique artists and tell their story of their next mint.
Yeah, so I think every city has a different taste and a different style, and Mexico City lent itself to what we're calling NFT Art CDMX. It's intended to be a celebration. Mexican culture is amazing. The hospitality is unparalleled. And so we wanted to work with 10 artists who felt as though under a common theme they could create something they would be really proud of. And this is sort of like small batch size generative work. There are editions of 100. The 10 artists we're working with here, this is a copy of our quarterly. We put one of these out in every city we go to. And we chose 10 artists: Ana Lucia, DCA, Dan, Iskra, Marcelo, Monica Rizzoli, Pixel Fool, Snowfro, Stefano Cantiero, William Mapan, and Zach Lieberman, as well as a few other artists, both from the Art Blocks community and outside of it, are going to be minting with us: Juan RG, Mario Carrillo, Fahad. And so the idea is we came to these artists with a prompt. In Snowfro's case, it was back in April. In some cases, it was serendipitous. Maybe they came to our London mint or our Berlin mint and they saw what Matt or Emily were doing and were inspired. And we come to them and we say, do you think this is an opportunity for you to create work you can be proud of? And if they feel as though it's a good fit, we find a way to work with them. And it almost feels like a concert poster where you have the lineup and people come and they say, okay, I want to see this as my favorite artist and I want to make sure I get a chance to meet them. And maybe you discover someone new. To me, that's something that I think the music industry has done really well, is the opportunity to go to these festivals and you go for the artist that you love, but you leave with a new favorite. And we hope that this is something similar, where for those of you who are coming to Mexico or decide to look in the Mexico collection, maybe it's Snowfro and you want to see what his work looks like, but you actually discover someone else along the way and you leave a lifelong fan. And that's really the hope.
It's fantastic. Very, very excited. Just out of curiosity, you said other cities are coming. Any that you can announce yet? I know Tokyo's on the list, right?
That's right. Yep, Tokyo's on the list.
Is that going to be next, or?
Yeah, so sometimes it feels like our fate is not our own. We're a DAO, and we've been a DAO since day one. We were founded on chain in March of 2021. You have to realize Bright Moments was not intended to be a startup. We didn't start with a business plan. We didn't start with anything except for the idea that we were really fucking bored inside and wanted to have a great art show on Thursday nights. And so because of the fact that we are an on-chain organization, there are certain decisions that we feel as though are better made by large groups of people than a small group of people. And figuring out which decisions those are is sometimes the difficult part. But in our case, in every city we go to, we launch an on-chain vote for sort of the next city. And so right before we got to Mexico, we launched an on-chain vote. Everyone that holds a crypto citizen, which is the members of our DAO, are able to vote. And out of 5 cities, they chose Tokyo. And so we're going to Tokyo in late April, early May of next year. That's going to be city number 7, 8, 9, 10. We don't know. We have a lot of vigorous debate about which the best cities are. When you narrow the world down to the 10 places you should open an NFT gallery, you realize that there's a lot of really amazing cities. And so after Tokyo, I don't know. We have some geographies in mind. We know we want to do something in South America. We know it would be amazing to do something either in maybe Africa or the Indian subcontinent. And then city 10, I think it's sort of like a wild card. We're going to learn so much over the next year or two that we don't want to be too prescriptive about it, and we're going to trust our community to lead us in the right direction.
Last question while we have you, Phil. It's so awesome to hear you retell the story of like the humble beginnings of the sand on the concrete in Venice Beach and people wandering in and out. And you guys just wanted to host really great events on Thursdays. To seeing where you guys are at now and having the attention of the generative art space as it relates to showing work physically. It's just been an amazing evolution to see you guys go through city by city and tell those stories. Just for the audience, for us, what do you hope Bright Moments looks like over the next few years? What are the ambitions of the project, and what do you want to be remembered by as time persists and time goes on, and where do you hope Bright Moments is in playing a role in generative art and in the Web3 space more broadly over the coming decades?
Yeah, I mean, it's our roadmap over the next year and a half is very clear. We're going to go to 10 cities. We're going to mint 1,000 crypto citizens in every city, and we're going to try to create the best art that we can along the way. My hope is that the crypto citizen collection and the 10,000 generative on-chain portraits that we're creating that represent these cities become a cultural artifact that is something that people appreciate. Those who minted with us along the way, we hope it's one of the NFTs in their collection they feel most emotionally connected to. And I hope that we can leave behind sustainable galleries in these cities where we can continue to elevate artists and work with not only the best generative artists in the world, but continue to bring in the new class of artists who are going to be those who are creating work maybe in 5 or 10 years' time. I think everyone in crypto has a story of when they first learned about it. They have that friend who sent them the text message or the news article that sent them down the rabbit hole, and we want to be that moment for as many people as possible, specifically with a focus with on-chain generative art. And so that's my hope. At the end of 2024, we're going to mint the 10,000th crypto citizen. I'm probably going to have a breakdown and cry because it's going to be a 3-year journey at that point, and we're going to have met literally 10,000 people along the way and try to build a personal connection with all of them. And I want to be able to look back at the art that we've created and feel really proud of this as sort of a cohesive collection, not only Mexico City or Berlin or London or Tokyo, but all of it. And for those of you who maybe are going to be able to join us in Mexico or one of our future cities or visit an existing gallery, I would encourage you to stop by and try to mint something, because that experience of not only buying art, but also creating it in person, and if the artist can be there, even better. That's something that's worth doing.
Well, I just want to thank you for doing what you're doing, because it is so important to have this physical experience and let people know, like real people that are into more traditional art, get a chance to actually do something in real life and see that this is a magical experience that you've created. I believe it just kind of bridges that gap and lets people know this isn't just about being on MetaMask in your computer and being a computer nerd and like geeking out on it, but actually, really showcasing what can be done with generative art and in real life experiences. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
And thanks for being here, Phil. Phil from Bright Moments, everybody. Thanks.
We could have Tim Ferriss come up here and talk about his new project.
Yeah. Tim Ferriss, everybody. Come on up, Tim.
I love that he just walked in, and I would go like this. I go this way, Tim, and
I was not planning on the impromptu, but here we are. Kevin, behave.
So we recorded a 2-hour podcast.
We did.
The other night that went really deep. We haven't launched it yet.
Not yet.
But Tim has been hard at work secretly.
Very secretly. Even Kevin, secretly.
I know. You won't tell me half the shit like when he's doing it, because he knows I'll tell everyone.
75% I won't tell.
Yeah, that's right. So Tim, we have some time. How much time do we have? A half hour?
I think we got a half hour.
Do we have other people planned to
Nope.
come on? Okay, sweet.
Good to see you.
How you doing, Tim? Good to see you, buddy.
Good.
So this is awesome because you are really close to launching
Very,
a new
very
project.
close. Yes, 8.5 months pregnant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
You poured your kind of heart and soul into this thing that people don't know behind
Yeah.
the scenes.
Yeah. I was actually, when I got your text about this, I was on my way to go to do more writing related to the project.
So this is actually being live streamed too.
Oh, great.
Just so you know.
Hi, world. Just you and your million
just-
best friends.
Just so we can't save it, because sometimes we record stuff and Tim's like, okay, let's save that for this date to go out.
Yeah.
So this is going out in real time. So
Yep.
what can and what are you comfortable talking about? Because you've done some cryptic announcements.
Very cryptic.
I know when people approached you last night, you've shown off a little bit of the artwork from
Tiny
time to
bit.
time, tiny bit. You're doing something that after our recording, I realize, it's very unique in that it's not a cash grab. It's not just a standard PFP. There's a lot more depth to it than that. What would you like to share today? What can we talk about?
Yeah, I would say that it's become very, very elaborate, as you know. It started off very simple and has become very, very elaborate. I would say that I'm going to have to meditate very carefully on this robot eye that's watching me live. Hello, Hal. Good morning. It is the combination of some of my favorite things. And effectively, what I would say I did, and there are a million different ways we could go about this, but I went back and thought about, what did my 13-year-old self love? Like when I was a kid, what were the obvious things that gave me joy? And I tried to put all of it into this project. So for some of you, if you've seen the teasers, a few teasers have gone out on my Twitter account, very cryptic. They're going to be extremely detailed, extremely detailed. So the artwork is very good, I think. I'm very, very proud of it. And I'll let you guys know something that will not be immediately obvious, I don't think, but they are and will be ultimately 3D characters, 3D files. And so the teasers that you've seen are actually cameras in various modeling programs being rotated around these characters. So eventually people could actually create all of their own teasers themselves, basically a movie teaser for their own character type of thing, including stills. And then you have fiction. So I've always been a huge fiction fan, both in terms of reading, right? The Neverending Story was my favorite book when I was a kid. I read it over and over and over again. I still have all of my D&D from when I was a kid. I mean, literally all of my money went into D&D, right? So I have all of my dice. I have all of my modules. I have first edition, folks, first edition players manuals and Dungeons and Masters guides and so on. I mean, these like 1972 Gary Gygax. I got all that stuff when I was a kid. So you'll see sort of Tolkien-like influence. You'll see a lot of references to things that I love, Japanese culture. And the way that it is going to present, I'm not going to get into the super specifics, but characters, I'll give you guys some of the basics. So they're going to be 8 primary houses, and you can think of these as clans. And there is this realm in which they all have territory. There are a couple of demilitarized zones, let's just say. And there are deep relationships in terms of alliances, in terms of old enmities, trade. You have scarcity of different resources, and all this plays into world building. So I don't know how many of you know, but I'm a huge Dune fanatic, and I've read it many times. I think it's one of the greatest works of certainly world building in the genre of science fiction in the last 100 years. So anyone who's interested in world building, even if you don't read Dune, go read the appendices. Holy shit. It's so detailed, getting into the ecology and everything of this space. So there's all that, right, which sounds pretty serious. And then I've realized for myself, and I'm sure I'm not the only one here, I've had a pretty fucking hard year or two. And on a bunch of levels. Personal, I won't get into it now, but a lot of really hard shit. And also have spent, as some of you may know, the last handful, well, no, more than handful, 5 to 8 years focused on funding early stage science in psychedelic therapeutics and basic science related to helping people with conditions that are effectively, and this is going to be a slight overstatement if any scientists are watching, but untreatable. They're treated very poorly if at all. So you have treatment-resistant depression, complex PTSD as a result of, say, sexual abuse or war trauma, and so on. The reason I bring this up is I'm very proud of the work, but it gets super heavy. It gets so heavy, and it can get so dark, and I get sent hundreds of graphic stories from people. And I don't want to stop doing the work, but I need something to offset that. It's just too fucking heavy and dark at times. So this project is going to be like the pinnacle of absurdity, and there's going to be a lot of comedy and levity, because my feeling is you can't really get the serious work done if you're serious all the time. You're going to burn out. You're not going to have the endurance. You have to have some laughs and levity along the way, or you're just not going to actually be able to lift the boulder. One last thing. So this project, which is going to be very funny, I hope, it'll probably send people like into a monkey tilt, which is okay too. All the primary sales are going to the foundation. So it's like I'm pushing the sort of funding into all the projects that are really serious, but doing it in a fun way. So those are a few things come to mind.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Tim, this is awesome. So this is the first I'm hearing about the project.
First time talking about it like this.
It's super cool. You're touching on this world building component. You're touching on bringing some of your own life experiences into the project in some very meaningful ways. I want to talk about a third part, which is the Web3 component. So you and I met last year.
Yeah.
And I have never seen somebody on board so quickly into this space. The density of the questions that you asked was so intense and relentless.
Jesus, I know
it
that.
it was honestly one of the most insane experiences responding to some of these text messages.
Waterboarded by question.
It was amazing just to like watch you work and to watch your brain break this thing down and ask the right questions in terms of understanding the levers of why things become valuable in this space. It was a learning moment for me.
Oh, thanks.
Just watching a master work. I'm curious, it's been about a year. There's obviously you're doing this on Web3. And so maybe talk a little bit about how you studied about Web3, what kind of levers you hope to pull and what you've learned and hope to bring in as it relates to the technical part of what you're building.
Yeah, oh boy, here we go. All right, this is when I get a chance to really embarrass myself. So thank you for saying that. Also, thank you for putting up with the questions.
It was awesome.
And we had a bunch of questions. We had a number of conversations since. So you've been very generous with your time. Thank you for that. The technical side is part of the appeal of why make NFTs, right? I could make art. I could write a book. It could take a million different forms. So why do this? And one of the drivers was to learn about new technology. And also, frankly, it's like I got a lot of old friends who are really deep in space. It's Brendan Prement over there, Kevin Rose, if you haven't met him. And it's also just been a new arena in which I get to experiment and reconnect with friends. So it made a lot of sense to try to do something in Web3. From a technical side, as you guys know, a lot of open questions. A lot of updates in the last week. I mean, the marketplaces have changed. The dynamics have changed. And while on one hand, I've watched a lot of projects very closely, and I've looked at historical examples, but you got to be careful about comparing anything in a manic bull market and applying those conclusions to a bear market. I think that's a risky idea. So what I've come away with is, yes, I think there are certain principles you can follow to try to ensure a successful project in the sense that the floor price doesn't drop through the proverbial floor, right? But just so you know what's going on inside me, at the same time, is I've had a lot of advice, which has been some of it very good advice, but a lot of advice along the lines of you have to do this, you can't do this. And there's a lot of downward pressure. There's a lot of sort of fear-based race to the bottom pressure. And I feel like I have a philosophical obligation to oppose that. Meaning, I'm not going to name names, but there are people I met last year here and people I met throughout COVID who could finally spend more time with their families, stop, say, touring all the time as artists, and do really well. And I won't get into it here, but like I've been involved in book economics. I was an illustrator back in the day. A lot of people don't realize that. I paid a lot of my expenses in sort of life expenses towards the end of high school, and then in college as a illustrator by hand, mostly ink. And so I do want to. I have been trying to keep in mind that my creative decisions should be made first and foremost by what pleases me. I know this isn't maybe directly answering the technical question, but it ties in because it means that I may break a bunch of rules. I probably will break a lot of rules. And I will say I've decided that there are ways you can involve, let's just say, very complex mechanics in launching an NFT. And throughout this entire thing, I've been thinking to myself about something that Morgan Spurlock, who's a fascinating guy, who made Super Size Me, documentary filmmaker, has done a lot more. Inside Man, I think everybody should check out. It's an amazing series. And he was talking about gear when you're recording in the field. He said once you get fancy, fancy gets broken. And I've watched some of these launches where I'm like, I'd like to think I'm a reasonably smart person, and I can't fucking figure out what they are trying to get me to do. Like, this is 27 steps, and then I have to hop on one leg and turn around sideways while I recite my passphrase backwards and fucking, Klingon. What? Like, I can't figure it out. And for that reason, I'm also going to try to keep it simple and focus on my strengths. So I'll give you an example. There will be the background and the fiction and the lore, most of which is already done, a lot of which is done, will be coming out as text, but it will also come out as a podcast. So I haven't launched a new podcast in a very long time.
Let's go.
So it will be hilarious to me when this comes out, because people are not, especially people from my audience and like mainstream audience, are just going to be like, what the fuck is this? And I get glee out of that because I'm a child. And I'm really looking forward to it. But I do think that will be exciting, and I'm catering to what makes me happy first and gives me laughs along the way. Because what I've realized is, for instance, Tools of Titans, I was mentioning this yesterday in a conversation, is a book that comes up a lot and people enjoy reading it. I don't think it's coincidental. That was the book I enjoyed writing the most. It comes across. And in podcast episodes, if I follow the people I want to have on the show rather than responding to, let's say, an internal or external pressure to have a celebrity on, and then I have them on and I'm just like, wah, wah, this is fucking terrible, But I'm like, hi, how are you? Oh, I have another hour left. And people can feel that. It's like, oh, great name. They get in and they're like, Tim wants to fucking kill himself right now. So there will be the podcast. I'm really looking forward to that. We have some really good people involved. So anyway, that's a lot of talking. But
I have a question about that because obviously you're writing and New York Times bestseller multiple times over. That's such a core strength of yours. You've got a PFP that's going out. You haven't announced numbers on that yet? Are you okay talking about numbers?
No, not numbers yet.
Okay.
Well, I can talk about why I'm not announcing numbers yet. It's just like I like to have as much information as possible when making decisions. You're never going to have perfect information, but like everything is in such a state of incredible flux. It always is. I do find it funny. Can I just make one side comment?
Yeah.
When people are like, I have to hedge against inflation. Yeah, 3% a year. It's just eating your cash. So I'm going to invest in something that has 80% volatility. I was like, you may want to think about how you do that. Okay, so
yeah, my question is that so many of these projects that we've seen out in the NFT space, they say we have lore, we have backstory, we're going to do comic books, we're going to do movies, we're going to do this and that. There's all these promises, and you see a page of lore or a website of lore, and they're like, okay, now we're going to crowdsource it. Community's going to kick in. And don't get me wrong, I think there will be some success there somewhere.
Yeah.
You have written a shit ton already. So you're a writer. Can you give us how are you tying these to the actual PFPs? Meaning if someone picks up a PFP, can they expect their clan, their PFP to be kind of mentioned, obviously in the storyline? Is it going to be comic books? It is going to be a podcast. How are people going to consume that side of the lore?
Yes, so this is a great opportunity to set expectations. I'm a big fan of setting them at zero.
The movie's coming next year, right?
Yeah. So everybody's going to get shipped a 3-dimensional monster suit that will allow them to fight in the metaverse. No, I'm not doing that.
Sounded like a cat dying.
Thank you. I'll be here all week. So I am not committing to doing any line extensions or anything of that type. The podcast, and thank you for the layup, like the softball pitch on this. And I'm going to come back to the PFP thing because I don't think about this as a PFP project. That may be of interest to people. What I'm doing is I have a handful of things I'm going to launch, including this podcast, which for me right now I'm thinking of as one season, limited run. So maybe it's 8 to 12 episodes. And then if I enjoy it, and my experience of Web3 and launching a project isn't just dealing with dicks yelling on Twitter all day.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Then maybe I continue doing stuff, right? And I will say that the lore is going to be more than a page. Yes. Because this whole thing is a way of holding myself accountable and having a team to encourage me to do the stuff that I say I want to do, right? There are things we all want to do, like, yeah, I should cook more. Oh, yeah, I should exercise more. And then it doesn't happen. Why doesn't it happen? Because we don't have accountability. So for me, this is also a way. I've been saying I want to do more art. I've been saying I want to write fiction, and I haven't done it. Why haven't I done it? Well, clearly I'm committed to not doing it in some way. So how do I fix that? Let's launch a project with a deadline where I'm paying people, and oh, fuck, now I actually need to write. Great. So it's going to be a lot more than a page.
How much have you written? Like, just give us an idea of like backstory.
I mean, I have written, I'll put it this way. I've written the background. So the word lore has taken on a very specific Web3 connotation, which I don't like. That's my packet of drugs, excuse me. Just to be clear on the web
a lot of
screen,
vitamin C.
It's vitamin C. if I'm I love all of you, but I don't know you people. So if I'm shaking hands and kissing babies, I want vitamin C. When I'm traveling. All right, where was I? Oh, yes.
How much have you written? Yeah.
I've written a lot. Most of it will not
pages?
No, not hundreds of pages. I'll leave it at a lot, and I will say that 90% of it's not going to see the light of day because it's not fucking good enough. So the stuff that I'll share, the episodes will probably be pretty short because I'm going to set it up in such a way that if I enjoy it and if people enjoy it, then I can potentially continue. And it is actually something I can manage to produce on an ongoing basis if I decide to do, say, a season 2 or something like that. But let's come back to the PFP. So I don't actually think about this as a PFP project, although certainly you could take some cut, some cropping on one of these characters and have a PFP. I've been debating different options for another acronym that would capture it. I don't want to take FWB because obviously it's Friends with Benefits and they're doing amazing things. But I was thinking of like fictional world building, right? It's not. I don't think of it as a PFP project because what I've seen with a lot of these PFP projects, and they're not. I mean, look, it's one approach to launching a project. I'm just doing something different. But for the projects that try to say like some of them where they're like we're doing storytelling. They're creating the artwork and then saying like how can we piece together a few pages so that we're selling the idea of storytelling. For me, I'm doing it so I can actually write. That is really different. It's totally different. And I'm having so much fucking fun. I mean, we've had a million conversations. I'm getting so much energy from this right now. So if that continues to be the case, I could see doing a lot of fun stuff. But there will be at least, I mean, there already is enough. I mean, I've done like 20 revisions on each of these things already. It gets very hard to build worlds, by the way. I think there's a good reason why a lot of these projects have one page, because as soon as you have all these different parties with all these interdependencies and different timelines, stuff has to make sense. Like the first one, you're like, I can make up anything. Oh, this is so fun. And then you get to the 8th one, and you're like, oh, wow, this is actually a lot to keep track of. But I'm taking it very seriously, which will be all the more hilarious when you actually see what this is.
So I would say last night, it was probably 8:30 or so. Once you've had a couple drinks and you started showing people the artwork, when can people approach you today to see some of the artwork?
I wonder if there's a way for me to like airdrop. I could put something up.
Don't say airdrop. Don't say those words out loud.
Oh, Jesus.
People get really excited.
Sorry. Sorry. False alarm.
Are you launching a token?
Put down your weapons. Oh, Lord. Yeah, I got to watch my words really carefully here. When alpha. Yeah. So if when could people approach me? Oh God, I don't want to. Yeah, yeah.
We can walk around after the
Yeah, I mean, look,
things.
I am extremely introverted, so please don't take offense if I'm like, too much simulation, I got to go by. I mean, when I first got to the party last night, just to set expectations, I don't know if anybody saw me, but I got there and I was like, oh, wow, this is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. And I went to the falafel stand, I got a falafel sandwich, and literally went and stood facing the concrete, like here, and just ate my sandwich, texting Kevin, being like, when are you getting here? When are you getting here? I don't know what to do. So I would say, look, if people come up, I'm happy to give you a couple of preview shots, but I'm still figuring out how much I'm willing to share. You know me.
Yeah. Tim's hard to get.
This is the most I've shared publicly anywhere, absolutely up to this point. I haven't talked about 99% of this stuff. But here's what I would say. Here's what I would say. Also, this is super important, and it's probably not what some people want to hear. I do not, don't view any of what I'm doing as an investment of any type. And that's not just to cover my ass. Like, legitimately, if you followed my books or my podcast and you're like, Tim generally does interesting stuff, am I willing to, buy an entry ticket that is, the cost of a handful of dinners and be along for the ride, just see what the fuck happens, and, not be attached and just assume it's going to be, a very, very pretty, I think, very, very pretty image that you can have on your desk? Great. But otherwise, do not pass go, please. It's yeah, I'm not viewing it as an investment. There's no Discord. No. That's antithetical to the 4-hour work week. Sorry, guys. There's no roadmap. How am I going to add value? I'm going to add value by, if I continue to like it, continuing to write and make stuff.
Tim, I can say that we're all pretty stoked to learn more and can't wait for the next drop of alpha on your Twitter account later today. You never know. Unfortunately, coming to the close of this awesome live recording, I asked Kevin this about a month ago. I'd love to ask you too. Not very many people have seen the rise of these technological movements while they're happening, and Kevin is certainly one that has, and you are another. And you were here in Marfa last year, and now you're really diving in headfirst into this space. So I just, to close us out, would be curious to hear you reflect on what you're seeing now as it relates to what you've seen before and where you think this is going, if you've got any predictions in terms of the movement and the growth you're seeing in Marfa as a result of art blocks and some of the cooler projects that are coming out.
Yeah, happy to speculate, right? I've been working very intensely on this project for at least the last 9 months. I've been thinking about it for a longer period of time and talking to, a lot of folks. So what I see is, in the form of NFTs as artwork, just to be clear, right? NFTs can be a lot of things, that they've acted as a very effective on-ramp for muggles like me to engage with a new technology that is, in the sort of underlying layers, quite complicated. But being able to interact with it in a sort of abstracted, very simple way. So what I've seen since last year is a lot of companies learn about NFTs through, say, Beeple selling his piece of artwork, and they're like, what the hell is this? This makes no sense. Digging in and then ultimately realizing, oh, wait a second, NFTs could have utility. In fact, they could be existentially important to our company. So that's one development that is unrelated to artwork, but it is related to NFTs. In the last year, I've had conversations with a number of companies, everyone or most people you would recognize, who are engaging with NFTs because they were introduced through artwork. What I've also seen, I would say, in the last year is a very high degree of surprise from many people, including those who have spent a lot of time in Web3 specific to NFTs and art, who have realized, oh shit, artists don't automatically get paid forever. Huh.
Wild.
Huh. We thought that was actually an embedded, inextricable, inalienable piece of, say, the smart contracts. I would just say, and first, I don't need to do an NFT project. I really don't. I'm enjoying it. I can do other things. And if you've spent any time on NFT Twitter and been kicked in the nuts enough, you're like, wow, this neighborhood's pretty tough. So it's not all roses, to be clear. So what I'm saying isn't because Like all the primary sales are going to the foundation. Secondary, who knows? Protect the artists. I think it's really important. If you want to have art, you need artists. And if they all, I've seen exchanges on Twitter, many, where artists are like, well, what am I supposed to do if A, B, C, D, and E, and there are no secondaries? And the answers have been, well, you need to have a roadmap, you need to raise money, you need to build a team. And I'm like, that's fucking stupid, pardon me. But it's like, if you expect every artist to be, if artists were meant to be startup CEOs, they would already be startup CEOs. It's a different temperament. It's a different skill set. And they have different strengths and weaknesses that many times disallow them from being that. So if you want a broad spectrum of amazing artwork, my opinion, just me, and hey, I'm a novice, I'm new to all this still, do what you can to protect the artists. Because without them, if you just telescope out a few years, if this is a race to the bottom, no more artists. Or at least just a tiny sliver who are actually startup CEOs, who are then, when they have time, trying to be an artist. That is very, very different from focusing on the art, from focusing on the storytelling. So you can't, my opinion is, you can't simultaneously say, we want better art, we want more immersive experiences, we want world building, we want tons of fiction and storytelling, and we don't want to pay you any royalties on an ongoing basis. Most people need cash in some fashion to pay their mortgages and feed their kids and just have life and be reasonably content in order to do those things. And if they only get paid up front and the amount is diminishingly small and then they don't have ongoing royalties, they cannot justify using this scarce non-renewable resource called time to create the things that people say they want. So I would just say, think creatively about how artists can be supported, because if they exit stage left, which they will, which they already are, then artwork goes away. It's a foregone conclusion. At least a lot of it does. And I remain very excited, to be clear, but I've seen and this is understandable, humans are humans, but an overwhelming prevalence of short-term economic thinking, very short-term. Can I flip this? I'm not going to name platforms, but like, can I flip this on this platform that doesn't enforce creator royalties for 0.1 ETH? That's a dark road, guys. Ultimately, from a creative perspective, I understand why platforms compete in the way they compete. Right? I'm not naive about that. I understand, but I'm very, very excited, and I would say just think creatively about how you can keep artists engaged and earning a living. Because I don't know about you, but I see some fucking awesome stuff out there. I've seen some really, really fun stuff. I mean, I'm sure Kevin has been sharing, but I'm really excited about what Proof is doing. I'm really excited about all sorts of projects. I think Azuki does a really nice job. I'm a Japanophile, so I'm kind of a warm audience on that one. I mean, there's so many projects that I think are doing interesting things. So that's my take in the last year. Still super excited. Obviously, I'm launching in like the worst possible climate imaginable, which I actually enjoy because you can't be fucking lazy. Like, you actually have to be creative about it. And sorry, I know we're wrapping up. I'm giving you a TED Talk, but I started investing in early stage tech in 2008. For people who maybe weren't even alive, who knows? I don't know how old you people are. I guess you'd have to be like 14. Never mind. You're probably alive. That was a dot-com depression, and it was the best time to be on the field because all the fair weather entrepreneurs and investors had left, and it was just true believers. But there are sort of ideological true believers, there are art true believers, and then there are sort of financial, like militant day traders. And all can play in the same sandbox, but I'd say be very cautious about which of these groups you let lead the charge and sort of define the future.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing, Tim. That was great.
Yeah, this looks comfy.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
I know you like your Japanese.
I do. I've absorbed like 2 or 3 of Kevin's secondhand jackets.
Have you?
Yeah.
Which ones did I give you?
You gave me a brown one with like plaid on the inside.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That was nice.
All right. So with that, I do want to say thank you to Derek and to Steven, Clap Currency, and Glitch. Tell us real quick, 10 seconds about Glitch, because we're here, and if people come through Marfa, I think it's very important they come and check out this gallery. It's awesome.
Yeah, Erick really touched on this early on, but we definitely see Marfa as a creative hub right now for generative art, eventually for art broadly. And that intersection of technology and art that's happening right now on the internet, our belief is that it's going to start happening more and more in physical spaces. And so our point of view with Glitch is really to start storytelling and showcasing that intersection, bringing amazing panelists here to talk about what they're seeing and building, and most importantly, to showcase the great work that we all know and love and are collecting and talking about 24/7 on the internet. So Glitch is the first of what we hope many people coming to Marfa and starting to give back to this community and start bridging the internet with this amazing physical space. And we've got more planned in the coming years, and hopefully we'll get this panel back on next year, and excited to be a part of this community.
Yeah, I just want to say one quick thing. So Derek is one of the most unrushed, generous people with what he's learned in Web3 and tech. I just want to give you credit for that, because you've taken so much time, and not just for me. I've seen you do it online, and I just want to say I really appreciate it, because that is not the default norm. So
Thank
you for that.
I really appreciate that.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, make sure to talk to Tim to see the artwork. And free airdrops.
No free airdrops. No.
All right, that is it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you would like to help us out, head on over to proof.xyz and click on the reviews button at the very top and leave us a 5-star review. Thanks so much. Take care.